Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 213 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I am your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book was released in November. It's called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, as a wannabe entrepreneur, when I graduated college, I actually decided to join a technology startup to learn how to run a business and how to build sales processes for the company. It was there where I learned about a CRM package, which is a customer relationship management software that you need to collect a database of potential clients, document all the calls and emails to them, and create a sales funnel and a process to get speaking contracts from universities on a weekly basis, which is what I do today. The company that we started ended up building up to $25 million in annual sales with offices in 3 countries. So it was a fun ride for sure, but understanding that sales process was something that I never learned in college. And this was instrumental in building numerous entrepreneurial companies afterwards, including, of course, Greek University. Now, our next guest knows that you have a story to tell. How? Because everyone does. The saddest mistake that she sees people make is trying to be like everybody else, when really your greatest opportunity is in owning your own authenticity. The world is dying to see your gifts. It needs them. Nora Shepard is one of the founding members and the director of business development of an award-winning, internationally recognized personal branding firm called SimplyBe. She has overseen and helped build hundreds of personal brands. She has built the processes and systems that are today the bedrock of SimplyBe. She has witnessed grown men cry because they finally feel free to be themselves. Nora has helped to invent the frameworks to bring this to life for you as well. Today, she oversees key partnerships, client satisfaction, and continuous growth into new markets, and she would love to partner with you. Welcome to the show, Nora Shepard.
Thanks, Michael. Man, you made me sound really, really cool. That was an awesome intro.
I mean, who doesn't want to get to know you after an intro like that, right?
I'm saying, thank you. Can I just keep you around me all the time?
Absolutely. Just pack me in your suitcase, take me around the country with you. I'll do all the intros.
Like a hype man. Excellent. Excellent.
You know it'd be fun, right?
It's better for the world that doesn't happen, because that would be too fun, I think.
So I want to make sure that our audience who's listening right now, that they understand a little bit more about your background. You decided on the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor for your undergraduate experience. So why U of M?
I grew up in Chicago, and I was very torn between U of M and NYU in New York, actually. But ultimately, I decided University of Michigan, and I joke that if I was the person that I was at the end of college, at the beginning of college, NYU probably would have been a better fit. But I was really craving that college experience. I really wanted to join a sorority. I really wanted that community. I wanted the football games. I was recruited to row there. I really wanted that experience. And Michigan is such an incredible school. Excellent, excellent education, has an amazing community of groups and clubs and people. And I loved the Ann Arbor campus as well. So it was a very game time decision. I mean, I'm talking right up. Fun fact, I was in my prom dress and I still had not decided my school, and my mom, it was 2 days before the deadline, and my mom was like, you are not going to prom unless you pick a school. So I was in my prom dress, ready to go, and my mom basically blackmailed me, and that's how I chose Michigan.
Both great campuses. I've spent time on both campuses. They're both phenomenal, obviously very different experiences, but I'm glad that you got a chance to experience University of Michigan. I mean, the football alone is just, off the chains. I mean, the Greek life experience is just ridiculously good. So I totally get it. And you're right. I mean, our needs change as we evolve through our college experience. So what we need senior year might not be the same as what you really wanted freshman year. So I get that evolution, but obviously it all worked out. So there you
It
go.
did. Can't complain. Can't complain. Yep.
Can't complain about that. And talking about sororities, you joined Alpha Chi Omega sorority. So what was so special about the women at Alpha Chi Omega that made you want to join them?
Yeah, the Greek life on Michigan campus is really, really cool. It's the largest student. I mean, I'm sure you know these stats better than I do, but it's the largest student run organization on campus. It's like 18% of campus or something. So Rush was quite the experience. AKIO just stood out against anyone else. And I have friends in like lots of different sororities. It was an amazing choice. But AKIO girls they were so smart and so goofy and so themselves. I mean, in AKIO, there was someone in everything on campus, which I found really cool. There were people in student government, there were people in debate club and sports, what have you. And I just really, really loved and was craving that diversity of experience, really.
That's probably what made them so successful. Ultimately, if you have diverse members, then you're going to be able to problem solve a little bit faster, and then you're going to
100%.
see solutions that maybe you didn't think of because everybody else has their own unique vision, their own unique way of looking at a problem that, maybe you didn't think of, and that's a good thing.
I mean, yeah, you're preaching team building, I think, is one of the best things to come out of being in Greek life. I mean, wouldn't you agree? Like learning how to communicate with other opinions and all of that's so important.
So important. And obviously my chapter was the same as yours. I mean, very different folks from very different ways of life. And I think it made me a better human. It made me understand a little bit better where other people are coming from. And I think without those dynamics, it would be really, really hard for me today to be able to build a team the way that I've done. It's very intentional. And what I'm trying to do is replicate the team that I had in college, in a sense, to have
That's
all
funny.
of these different, perspectives, because I knew, when I was president of the chapter, that I just couldn't see certain things. And I was depending on my brothers to be able to point those things out to me. And I think the same thing is true today. There are some things that I just can't see, but others
Absolutely.
can, and I depend on them.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, let's talk a little bit about SimplyBe. You're the director of business development there at that agency. So what is SimplyBe and who are your target customers?
What you don't know what we are and what we do. We are a personal branding firm. Does that help shed light on anything?
A little bit, yeah.
So we are a personal branding firm. We've been around for about 5 years now, and we work with executives and entrepreneurs who are looking to use their personal brands to further their businesses. We work across all industries. What I think is so interesting about your community, though, is we have a number of like tools and courses and a book actually as well that can reach the masses. We want to democratize personal branding, right? Because everyone, as you said in my intro, has a story to tell. Everyone has something to say, and the world actually really needs your voice if you get intentional about it. So the book and the courses can walk anybody through the exercises that we take our executive clients through to help them build the foundation upon which they will then build their career.
Wow, that sounds really great. That sounds like a wonderful resource for the students that are listening right now. Let's talk a little bit about the processes and systems at SimplyBe. How would you describe these processes and systems to a college student that is looking to start their own business right now and learn from everything that you've created so far?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. A lot of people ask me for career advice now, and I think I did intuitively what I now coach other people to do, which is learn as much as you possibly can and ask for what you want and follow what gives you energy. So when I was earlier on in my career, when I was building out these processes, who had the audacity for me to ask to build this. Didn't have the experience to do so, but I went to my boss and I said, we're missing these processes and I think I want to be the one to build it, really having no idea what I was getting myself into at all. But she was like, okay, because a lot of people are going to say yes if you ask. That's just the truth. And I just soaked up information. I was tasked to build the account management department, which is not an easy task, as I'm sure that you can probably understand. Building the foundation that now is the bedrock of what our company runs on. How do you talk to clients? When do you talk to clients? What does that process look like? What is the onboarding process? It's really intricate and complicated. And I did not know what I was doing. So I just asked as many people as I could and experimented and tried new things, and wasn't afraid to fail. And so without getting into the details of what those processes are, because that I don't think is all that helpful. I think a lot of people look for, okay, here's exactly what I can do. And the truth is that there is no one size fits all answer. But the general advice that I have for sure followed in my life and was true in this process building is ask before you're ready, jump in and say yes, and then get as many mentors as you possibly can.
That's great advice. I love that you asked to do something that probably scared you at the time, because I think that's how we learn, right? It's getting your hands in
100%.
doing things that are going to challenge you, that are going to push you beyond what you currently know. And you know what? I mean, if I'm being honest with you, there are plenty of positions that I took that I knew was going to be a stretch for me, but it was very intentional because I needed to learn how to do these things if I was going to be successful for that organization and if I was going to be successful in life. And so I'm so grateful that I did that. But I can see where, sometimes college students or recent grads might look at a position and be like, oh, there's no way I can do that. I've never done that before. But that's ultimately how you grow. And if you've got the passion and you're willing to get a mentor to help you to decipher all of this, then you can do it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And this is specific to your college student audience. I think that's like advice that a lot of people give, like get a mentor and what have you, but it really, really is true. And when I came out of college, I think before I even knew what personal branding even was, I was tasked with this, like, how do I tell my story to get the job that I want? And the cool part about personal branding, the cool part about the work that we do is that you get to tell the story and you get to do whatever you want with your life. It doesn't have to be predetermined. It doesn't have to be predefined. Chances are the job that you want might not even exist because our world is changing so freaking fast. So when I came out of college, I would graduate with a women's studies degree. And I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to spin this. And so I thought about it and I was like, what are the jobs that I want? What is the most important thing for me to do? And I positioned myself, I was looking for content creation jobs, and I positioned myself as, okay, came into college with an intention to study movement science and occupational therapy. So those first couple of years really taught me how to ground myself in reality, taught me how to understand the world as it is. And then when I transitioned over to women's studies, that taught me how to question the world and how to make the world something different. And so that gives me a really unique intersection and vantage point that I think I can bring to your company of how to ground my dreams in reality. And so I'm always pushing the limits and questioning, but also I know how to make it happen, and I'm rooted, and I got a job within a couple of weeks. It's really the story that you get to tell, that you get to choose. It's actually really exciting. And I think what so many people, because imposter syndrome really never goes away. It never, ever, ever goes away. So when you're 22 and you're looking for a job or what have you, you're like, well, I'll figure it out when I'm 25 or 30 or 40. And it's just not going to happen. You're never going to feel qualified. So always going a little bit further than you think you can, and asking for it, because what's the worst that can happen? They say no. I mean,
And you'd be surprised. There's so many people that if you ask them to be your mentor, they'll probably say yes, especially if you're a college student
100%.
or a recent grad. I'm very, very likely to say yes to something like that. So reach out to them, whether that be in a networking situation, whether that be on LinkedIn, whatever it is, find those mentors. They're out there and they want to give back. They want to be helpful. So I love that. Now, just like AKO, you have core values at SimplyBe as well. And so at SimplyBe, it's be bold, be kind, be relevant, be true, be in service, and be extraordinary. I mean, this sounds like a sorority. Here we go. How do you stay true to these values as you continue to grow the team at SimplyBe?
Oh, I love this question because it really is. So Jessica, my CEO, is the founder, and then Alexa Norby-Titus is our VP of marketing, as our other founding member. So it's the three of us who really found this company together. And one of Jessica's favorite quotes is culture eats strategy for breakfast. So we have been very conscientious and conscious of how it's a lot easier to build culture when it's three of you. How do you do it when there's 24 or eventually hundreds, right? Like that is much more difficult. And so it has evolved over time, but it is incredibly important. And so there are like lots of ways that we do this. First of all, being super crystal clear on who we are. We don't hire unless you check every single one of these boxes. We actually, in the interview process, not just tactically, but we actually ask questions to get to these core values of like, based on our definitions, we ask them questions as part of the interview process. And then we have a couple of meetings that we have throughout the week, a couple of ways to keep ourselves accountable to these. And one of my favorite meetings of the week, we have it every other week. It's called our core values meeting, where we go around and we tell everyone else in the company, here's how you have specifically displayed boldness in the last 2 weeks. Here's how you have specifically displayed relevancy in the last 2 weeks. And it basically is like complimenting each other. But that is absolutely beautiful because it's specific and it's tactical and it's tangible. And it's saying, I acknowledge you for displaying these core values as my teammate. And it's a very beautiful meeting and we all cry most of it. And I think it's just an amazing example of scaling culture, which has been our greatest focus, because if culture goes, what do you have left? So how do you continue to stay true to these? And it's really just about embodying them, living them every day, encouraging and challenging others to rise to the challenge. And there are like systems and processes to do that, but that's all it comes down to, is just being true to who you are, surrounding yourself with people who are also true to who they are. And I say to our interns all the time, I'm like, I hope that we raise your standards of what it can be to work in a place, because that's how you scale. You see that you can actually cry at work. You can see that you can be heartfelt at work and still crush your goals and do an awesome job. And both can be true. You don't have to have like a professional persona and a personal persona. So yeah, that's how we have scaled culture, and will continue to evolve and iterate, I'm sure.
I love that quote about culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think that's fantastic. And, I think same thing is true for your fraternity and sorority. I think, a lot of chapters out there give awards on a weekly basis. And unfortunately, sometimes it evolves into, who got the most drunk this week. And instead of doing that, let's replace it with, who most exemplified the values of the organization this week. And let's talk about that, because
I love
that is
that.
productive. I mean, that, really helps to solidify why we're all here. And people are going to live those values if they are reminded of them on a weekly basis at a meeting such as the one you're describing. So
Who doesn't like to be called? Who doesn't like to be complimented?
We all do. We all have that need. I mean, that's how we're wired. So I love that. I think that's great. Now, many of the college student listeners right now are running their chapter's social media account, whether it be, Instagram or LinkedIn or what have you. They really want to grow their followers. They want to have more interactions, and ultimately they want to add more members to their organization. So what advice do you have for them to tell their story in a compelling way that gets them more members?
My answer to that will have nothing to do with social media. It's going to say to get really clear on your message first. What is different? This is going to sound harsh. Who cares about you? That is like the biggest secret of personal branding, right? Is that nobody actually cares about you. Nobody cares about how awesome your sorority is. Nobody cares about how awesome your fraternity is. But how can you be in service to your community? That's how you grow, and that's how you're authentic, and that's how you build members. Because people come to online people come to the internet, people come to all of these places to grow their own network, to do their own thing, to build their own, to see themselves. So what is your unique message? You asked me at the top, like, why did I join AKO? And I listed the diversity. There's a lot of sororities that could have said that same thing. So how did they appeal to me in my particular way? They got really clear on who they wanted, the kind of person that they wanted in their sorority. And then they relentlessly and consistently and clearly said that all the time, right? So social media, I know, is like it's often when our clients come, they're like, well, I want to grow followers because that's like what success is, right? And well, yes and no. I know that followers are important and that is absolutely going to happen, but that is never our first focus at all. It is always about a clear, consistent story that you can tell over and over and over again, that people can start to understand who you are. And so yes, engagement is important. Presumably membership and getting the right members are going to be a higher result of, a higher ROI for them, right? So if they can consistently offline, get in a room together with your sorority sisters and ask the hard questions of, who do we want to be known as? Like, what makes us different from the other sororities on campus? What member is our ideal member? Let's like actually draw her out as like an avatar. Like, what does she care about? How can we provide value to that person instead of showing how awesome we are, which is a trap that I think a lot of college, actually humans can get into, right? It's like, I want to show how awesome I'm doing. And the truth is people don't really care about that. I say with all of the love. So really, if you are in service to your audience member, that is how you are going to grow authentically and be in integrity to yourself.
Thank you for articulating it the way that you did. I think you're absolutely right. Fraternities and sororities, for the most part, generally speaking, they haven't identified who it is that they're looking for. You need to have this conversation before recruitment even starts. Forget about 100%. Recruitment. Before it starts, let's identify what is the target, right? And it should be values-based. I hope you're not going out there looking for people with a certain haircut, because I have no hair. So, my point is to make sure that you're identifying who you want, right? What are their values, right? Do they believe in scholarship? Do they have a history of community service? Do they have friendship with X number of our brothers or sisters already? All of these things. And I think, if we do that and if we have a firm target, then it becomes real easy when it comes time to hand out invitations to join our organization, who gets in and who doesn't. It's binary, right? It's either zeros or ones. We shouldn't have a 3-hour meeting on trying to figure out who's going to get an invitation. Either they meet everything that we all discussed and agreed on as a chapter, or they don't, right? It's like, yes.
Oh my God, you just gave me flashbacks, Michael, to those Sunday night.
You think I wasn't there too? I mean, we were all there, and what a waste of time. The reason why it took us 3 hours is because we weren't clear on who we wanted in advance. If we were clear on that, then it takes no time, right? Yes or no.
100%.
Boom, 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 boom. Anyway, so I digress. All right, so let's talk about LinkedIn. Let's talk about jobs, because that's what college students really want at the end of the day. So what about our personal brands on places like LinkedIn in order to get more job opportunities for college students? Do you have any advice on that particular platform in order to get jobs, internships, and just overall more opportunities?
Oh, I love LinkedIn so much. Yeah, I actually just did a whole workshop recently to a college graduates about LinkedIn and how to use it for their personal brands. Ultimately, it is a very powerful platform. Same advice as the last one. All of this needs to begin off the screen, off the page. Get clear on who you want to be. Similar to like earlier in this conversation, when I came up with that story, that narrative, I first became clear on what jobs I wanted, what was important, so that I could use my past experience to justify the experience that I wanted to get, right? What is the job that you want? What responsibilities do they need? And how do you tell the story of your life to justify that you can do that, right? And there is definitely a way to do that. It's all about connecting the dots. Once you have that clear, LinkedIn becomes super tactical, simple but not easy, right? I don't want to oversimplify this. Like it is simple, but I know that it's not easy. It takes time and it takes thought, and you'll need to journal, and it's fun. Who doesn't? It's homework about yourself. But LinkedIn, when you get that super clear story, the best way to stand out is to update your headline, which is that little piece right beneath your profile picture. Guaranteed, not guaranteed, but I'd be willing to bet that a lot of your listeners have it as your job description, your job title, right? Because that's the default. So that is your piece of real estate. Whenever you are applying to jobs, the only thing recruiters get to see is your face and your location and your headline. And your headline is the only thing that's customizable. So make sure you have a really clear photo. Make sure you have a headline that tells the story that of the value that you can bring to your reader or your audience. So if that's a recruiter, what value can you bring to that potential company? Get super clear on who you want to be reaching and what jobs you're looking for, and tell that story there. And then of course your summary and your cover photo and all of that. But that's maybe for a different episode. But the headline would be like the biggest punch I would personally suggest is like a super clear profile picture, a headline that communicates what you do and who you do it for and the value that you bring them. And you'll stand out.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And then after you do all of those things that Nora just told you, that summary, I think, is a good place for you to tell your story. So that's where you're a storyteller, right? So make sure you have a good story to tell right there in the summary. That's the story. Put a story in that summary, because people love somebody who's a good storyteller. I mean, that's how, good public speakers get to where they are, is because they're able to tell a great story. And now you can do this in writing. So you have plenty of opportunity to craft your story in a way that's compelling and put it in 100%. Writing as your summary. I mean, I love, reading those when it's done well. And I think that also makes people stand out. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the recruiters and everything else, they see that photo, they see that, that tagline, and that's, basically it in your location. I mean, so you have limited real estate to work with there. So anyways, but that's all great stuff. Now, many college students right now are struggling to think of themselves as the expert or the authority, yet everybody is an expert in something. We know that that's true. So how can college students position themselves as the expert or the authority?
Yeah. So I think high level, there is kind of like what I said before, which is that what opportunities do you want to be known as? How do you want to be seen as an expert? And then justify it with your experience, right? You are definitely an expert in something. And like we keep saying, you get to define the narrative that you get to tell, right? So that imposter syndrome it just doesn't go away, even if you have all of the credentials. Can you relate to that? Because I hope I'm like,
oh okay,
God, good, you're nodding. I'm like,
absolutely. I'm like, I mean,
wait.
I'm 46 years old. I still have imposter syndrome every time I go out on stage, right? And I think I just got like my 67th recommendation on LinkedIn, and there's still imposter syndrome, right? It never ever leaves you.
Yep. So that's the hot take, hot secret. Like there is no there. Right. So there's no one, and there's no time to wait for you to feel like an expert, for you to be like, oh, I've made it. It's just never going to happen. And the goalpost will keep moving. And you're always going to feel like somewhat of an imposter. And that's not to scare. That's not like a doom and gloom. That actually should be empowering, because who's to say that when you're 20, you're not already an expert, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're still going to feel like an imposter at 55, why not just start to put yourself out there now? And the tool that we use, that we put people through, that Jessica, my CEO, outlines in her book, is called the hologram. It's our trademark methodology to help people get really crystal clear on the story that they want to tell. We find 4 to be the sweet spot of topics of like, how do you want to be seen as the expert and as the authority while still communicating your humanity? And then you just talk about those things and those things alone over and over and over again. And when you do this exercise, when you go through this exercise of actually building out your hologram, you start to find that you do already have innate gifts, you have innate talents, you have innate expertise that is learned. That when I was 21, I had been a lifeguard that had taught me that taught me discipline. And, it sounds like it can be a cliche unless you put personal stories behind it and you put actual lessons behind it in my life. It really did change my life, lifeguarding. And when people have a different experience, when they lifeguarded at a pool, they're like, they think I'm making it up, but I'm really not. I have a tattoo of a lifeguard chair. My best friend I met there, and she ended up, I'm going on to the Navy, and she was like, lifeguarding was harder than the Navy. It taught me more. So it's your own experience. There is no right or wrong answer. And if nothing else is taken away, like your listeners who don't feel like they have an expertise in something, your voice is so much more needed than you think it is. And like the world needs it. You are actually our future. Please start to put your voice out there. We actually desperately need it. So push through the imposter syndrome, because it doesn't go away, babe. That's my advice. Like,
yeah, you're so right. And everybody's here for a reason. I really believe that God put us on this earth for something. Sometimes you have to search a little while to figure out what that is. I certainly didn't know what that was when I was in high school or even in college, really. But eventually I figured it out, and it took a long time to get there. But you're all needed, and that voice is so important. And thank goodness Gen Z is here, because they want to make the world a better place. And God,
oh my God, they're going to save us.
They're going to save all of us.
We really do. Oh, they're going to save us. We're putting a lot of pressure on them, but I'm okay with
we really
it.
need you. You're here at the right time. Oh my gosh. You know, I also wanted to talk to you about retaining leadership, because I know you talk about this with companies. And so how can we retain our good members in our fraternities and sororities? Because it seems like many of them might be leaving out the back door, just as we're trying to recruit new members in the front door.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to culture eating strategy for breakfast, right? Maybe are you actually, I mean, I think taking a hard look in the mirror as a sorority or as a fraternity and saying, what are we really living our values, and are we pouring back into our members, not just in the way of socials, which are fun and some of my best memories, but like in meaningful ways. And that's not to say that we're not, but it's a constant iterative process of how can we better serve, again, all in service of others, right? How can we better serve our members in a really authentic and true way? And if someone does leave, not being afraid to ask, hey, can we have like an exit interview? That's what we do when we lose employees or lose clients. We do exit interviews, which are fortunately few and far between, but when they do leave, it's an opportunity for a really painful but very important learning lesson, if you're willing to hear the feedback and ask hard questions like, what could we have done differently? What could we have done better? What did you wish we had done more of? And take into consideration. So learning when someone does leave, taking it as a learning opportunity, always being in service to your members and to your team, if you know, with leadership, being really true to your values and focusing on scaling and growing your culture over anything else. And again, going back to that like audience avatar, who is the person that we want, and being ruthlessly unapologetic about maybe losing and shedding isn't always a bad thing if they're not your ideal person. So if you get really clear on who you want in your group, just be ruthlessly unapologetic to serving that person and be okay with losing the others.
Wow, that's a great suggestion there on doing exit interviews. I think about some of the fraternity members that we lost in our chapter, whether it be during the new member process or maybe senior year, they're ghosting us and we just didn't see them. So doing those exit interviews, I think is really, really critical to kind of shore up some of those weak spots. And it's okay to talk about those things and to fix them, so that way that doesn't happen again, right? Sometimes maybe we just don't want to look at it, thinking that if we don't look at it, or we don't talk about it, somehow magically it's just going to go away on its own. So
it doesn't.
It really doesn't. It's still there. It reminds me of there was a chapter at Hofstra, and I went over to their house one day and I saw that there was like yellow tape around their bathroom that said like, caution, do not enter. Right?
Oh no.
Yeah, there was some kind of, I don't know, overflow or something like that. And they just thought that if they put caution tape, somehow that problem was going to go away in the house. It's not going away. You got to deal with what's behind that door, right? But
that's not how that works.
I mean, they just thought the caution tape is going to save us all and it'll just fix itself. No, it doesn't.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That checks out. Yeah.
I'll never forget that. It
That's
cracks
hilarious.
me up. I was just like, what is going on? And so I know that we met because you're now making the move into the Nashville market. So I'm wondering what
Yeah.
makes Nashville the ideal place for you to expand for you and also for the company.
A lot of reasons. I mean, we did a ton of competitive analysis and research before we moved into this market. We're headquartered in Chicago, and Nashville made sense for a lot of reasons. Number one, there's a number of industries that are really growing here that are ideal for us, i.e. healthcare. It's one of the top industries for healthcare. Real estate, booming for real estate. Realtors desperately need our services, entertainment, and hospitality. So those are four key industries that are really, really big here, that were really important for us. Next, it's the fourth best city for growing businesses and top industry or top city for female entrepreneurs. So very big there. Yep. It has been since like 2016 or something. And then culturally, like we just, the cultures here and the people, I say this when people are like, what's the most surprising thing that you found? I'm like, one of the most surprising things in the best way, we stand out here for a lot of reasons. The last reason that we came here is just no one exists like us. There is no personal branding, even though there's a desperate need for it. But like, we don't stand out for bringing heart to the workplace. That is not one of the reasons we stand out here, which has been such a breath of fresh air. So we stand out for lots of other reasons, but which is good. You want to stand out for that, but culturally, these are our people. If there's a warmth here, people want the best for each other, and that's how we operate in business as well. So for all of those reasons, plus lots of other ones, Nashville was the right next move.
That sounds great. Yeah, there's a lot of warmth in the people here. I think you'll find that. I certainly found it here in 2012. And now look, it's been 10 years now. So who would have thought? But I think you're in the
Who would
right
have thought?
place. Who would have thought? Never in a million years would I have thought that as like a high school kid or a college kid that I was going to end up in Nashville. We were all taught that New York is the place to be. This is where the best schools are. You can never leave here. I find out, wow, the world is a big place and there's a lot of really cool things going on elsewhere. So, so just be open-minded, I think,
Totally.
as life throws some softballs your way. Pay attention to some of the signs that they're trying to send you. So that's really good. Now, of course, we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm a little bit of a foodie myself, and I get the sense that you also like really good food. So have you found any good restaurants in Nashville yet that you really liked?
Yeah, I mean, there's the food here, I come from a foodie city in Chicago,
Yeah.
but I found that the food here is more reliably delicious. Like Chicago has amazing food places and like a lot of mediocre places. And I find like here there's a lot of really good food. Best queso is at and now I'm totally blanking on the name. It's like this place in Germantown. The Goat I love the Goat very much. Up Burger, Sadie's, like the list kind of does go on. The food here is pretty insane. I'm not gonna lie.
It's pretty insane. Well, I'm happy that you're starting to discover that. I think that's really good. We'll have to go out for lunch. I'll take you to a few of my favorite
Please.
spots, and you will enjoy it tremendously. The food is just ridiculously good.
I would really, really like that. Yes.
Right. We will definitely make that happen. So if our college students listening right now, if they want some more information about SimplyBe for their own personal branding, their company's branding, if they want to hire you as a keynote speaker, maybe you can help them run a workshop with all of their students to discover their personal branding, where can our listeners go to connect with you?
Yeah, so they can learn more about SimplyBe at simplybeagency.com. Or they can connect with me directly on social media. Find me on all the things. LinkedIn probably is the best place. So Nora K. Shepard is my name. And if you want mentorship, like we said, we like to give back here. But yeah, keynote speeches. Me and Jessica both speak all over the country, and some other members of our SimplyBe team. So simplybeagency.com, Nora K. Shepard on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. I am so grateful to the world that the social media outlets have connected us on your
Me
travels here in Nashville,
too.
Tennessee. I love meeting good people. And so you fit into that description. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that we had that introduction. And I'm thankful that we got to share you with our listening audience now.
Thank you for sharing me. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I mean, I think Greek life is amazing and beautiful, and I'm so grateful that I had the experience that I did. But I think if you love something, you should make it better. And so how can you make this community that has such amazing potential, that has amazing friendships, amazing people inside of it, even stronger and even better? And you're doing that in
That's what
spades.
we
So thanks
do
for
every
including
single
me.
day. I'm fighting like heck to
You're
make it the
fighting the
best
good fight,
experience.
Michael.
I am fighting. I'm going to do it, with my last dying breath. This is what I'm going to do to make Greek life, the best that it possibly can be. I really believe in the values. I really believe in the experience. I think it's the best leadership experience at U of M or any other
100%.
college campus. Obviously, they have their share of problems. I'm not going to shy away from that, but I do believe that the fraternity and sorority system is the solution, that we can work through the leadership that exists in AKIO and all the fraternities and sororities out there in order to make it a safer place. And I think you start with the leadership that's present in these organizations.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. To our listeners, we hope that you enjoyed this talk with Nora. So please like it. Please share it with other fraternity and sorority members, other college students on social media. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.